Martin Tupper once said, "He who does not tire, tires adversity." And if you Google quotes about adversity, that's one of the first things that comes up. Today we're looking at 6 guitarists who overcame great adversity. No need to beat around the bush, let's dive in. Perhaps the most famous case of a musician overcoming major hardship is Django Reinhardt, one of the early pioneers of gypsy jazz guitar, who made a name for himself with only 2 working fingers on his left fretting hand. Born in 1910, Reinhardt lived the life of a European Roma. These people, also known as the gypsies, would travel country to country, making ends meet any way they could. A central element of this lifestyle was music, something a young Django had an exceptional knack for. One evening after a gig, the 18-year-old guitarist went back to his caravan where his wife had spent the day making artificial celluloid flowers. During the night, this highly flammable material caught fire and their entire caravan was enveloped in flames. Django and his wife were lucky to escape with their lives, even though he did receive extensive burns across his body. The injuries rendered his ring and pinky fingers paralyzed, leaving him with only 2 working fingers and a thumb on his left hand. For many, this would have been an end to a musical career, but for a year and a half, Django stretched the burn tissue, he built the calluses back up on his fingers, and relearned the guitar. This limitation forced him to develop new methods of playing and musical phrases unlike anything else anyone had ever done. A new sound was developed in the ashes of this accident, and Django would go on to become one of the greatest and most influential gypsy jazz guitarists of them all. Moving on, you may not have heard of the guitarist Coco Schumann, but his story is one worth telling. Coco was born in Berlin 1924 and by 12 years old had developed a deep love for jazz. However, the Nazi regime of the time had an especially strong disdain for the music, so a Jewish jazz guitarist like Coco would have been better off anywhere else in the world. But Schumann found a way to make his music. When Nazi officers would raid the clubs he played at, the band would quickly switch over to German tunes, even having those song names atop the jazz lead sheets. On his refusal to obey the Third Reich, Coco said, "Anyone who has swing in his blood cannot march in lockstep." By 19, Schumann was sent to a concentration camp in Czechoslovakia, which, unlike many other camps, allowed the prisoners to play music. It was there that Coco joined the ghetto swingers, playing forbidden jazz music to the Nazi guards. When he was transferred to Auschwitz, the guitarist narrowly avoided death when one of the SS guards recognized him and allowed him to form a band to again entertain the other Nazis. After liberation, Coco Schumann continued his career as a swing guitarist, playing with greats like Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald, living to the ripe old age of 93, passing away in January of 2018. For a true survivor like Coco, adversity is an understatement. In the late 80s and early 90s, Jason Becker was a young guitarist on the rise. He played with Marty Friedman, David Lee Roth, and was named Guitar Magazine's Best New Guitarist in 1990. He was critically acclaimed with an extremely bright future. The guy could even play guitar with one hand while yo-yoing with the other. But that same year, while working on David Lee Roth's new album, Jason was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, the thing that prompted the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge a few years back. This horrific disease robs you of your physical capabilities while leaving your mind intact. Jason Becker was given 3 to 5 years to live, but he has managed to defy the odds. When he lost the ability to play guitar, he started composing on keyboard, and when he lost that ability, he started writing music on computer using a mouse he wore on his head. Though his condition has worsened in recent years, he's still able to communicate with eye motion and still releases new music. When asked about what music means to him in a 2008 interview, Jason said, "It's huge being able to create. Music is what keeps me alive." Some say music fame is a young man's game, but that does not apply to the next guitarist on our list, Seasick Steve, whose career took off when he was in his 60s. At the young age of 13, Steve Wold left home to escape an abusive stepfather. His youth was spent traveling around the American South, living a rough and tumble life. In Steve's words, "Hobos are people who move around looking for work. Tramps are people who move around but don't look for work. And bums are people who don't move and don't work. I've been all 3. Seasick Steve worked countless odd jobs before eventually in the 70s he began working in the music industry. But it still wasn't until 2006 when he got his first big break appearing on Jules Holland's TV show Hootenanny. The BBC audience loved him, and at age 66 he became an overnight success. He has since gone on to tour the world and release a number of highly acclaimed albums. The next guitarist on our list was one of the most in-demand session guitarists of the 80s, Larry Carlton. His resume is a mile long, having played with Billy Joel, Michael Jackson, John Lennon, Jaco Pastorius, Joni Mitchell, and of course, Steely Dan. In the height of his career in 1988, Carlton was shot by a man on a bicycle outside of his Hollywood studio. It was a random act act of gang violence, and police never uncovered who shot the bullet. If it wasn't for a quick response by paramedics, Larry would probably have died that day. His vocal cords were destroyed, and the nerves leading to his left arm were severely wounded. Though he thought that he would never recover, through extensive rehab, Larry Carlton not only got his musical chops back, but according to some, he got better. Since then, Larry's continued to have success as a session musician as well as a solo artist in his own right, becoming one of the most well-respected jazz/blues guitarists of his time. The final guitarist on our list is Hugh D. Ledbetter, aka Leadbelly, who had as much of a knack for getting into trouble as he did for music. Born in the late 1880s, Ledbetter found himself on the wrong side of the law regularly throughout his youth, serving time in 1915 for carrying a pistol, and then being imprisoned again in 1918 for murdering a family member. It was during this second sentence he was given the nickname Leadbelly. As well, he was also stabbed in the neck. After serving the minimum 7 years of his sentence, Leadbelly wrote and sang a song for the governor appealing for early release. Apparently it worked too. But some 5 years later, he was back in jail for stabbing another man. It was after he got out of jail for the third time that his musical career started to take foot. The legendary ethnomusicologist Alan Lomax discovered Leadbelly and made field recordings of a number of his tunes. Songs like Good Night Irene, Black Betty, Where Did You Sleep Last Night, and Gallows Pole would inspire musicians for generations to come. Unfortunately, Leadbelly's life didn't get much easier. In 1939, he was arrested again for stabbing another man and served another 8 months in prison. His star would rise following this final stint in jail, doing a number of TV appearances as well as hosting his own radio program. And when it seemed like his life was finally headed in the right direction, Leadbelly was diagnosed with ALS and passed away soon after in 1949 at 61 years old. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, 6 guitarists who overcame great adversity. I hope you enjoyed the video. I have a deep passion for music history, and it's always my pleasure to share it with you. If you like what I do, please consider heading over to my Patreon page where I offer a monthly giveaway to everyone involved, among other things. For every month you support my channel, you're entered to win that month's prize. This month, May 2018, I have a box of assorted goodies from Hosa Cables, and the biggest of thank yous to everyone who's already a patron. You guys make these videos possible. Until next time, I'm Samurai Guitarist. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you again soon.